Hello, fellow mystery enthusiasts. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into the eerie and unsettling world of cinema. We're going to explore the top 5 cursed movies that have left their cast and crew with more than just a chilling on-screen tale. These films have been surrounded by strange occurrences, unexplained accidents, and even tragic events. So brace yourselves as we unravel these cinematic mysteries. Remember, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's dim the lights and begin our journey into the unknown. The late 60s and the 70s were a particularly ripe time for genre films that unsettled both on and off camera. Movies like Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, and The Omen were all released within 10 years of each other and remain some of the best-regarded horror films of all time. As we'll see, these productions were also plagued by on-set strangeness. The Exorcist, the 1973 horror classic, caused quite a stir amongst moviegoers. It is one of the most revered horror films in history. The Exorcist is a terrifying film, following Regan, Linda Blair, and her mother, Ellen Burstyn, who, after witnessing some strange behavior from her daughter, seeks medical help only to find her way to a priest, who's the only one who can help the possessed girl. The set of the movie was the slew of unfortunate injuries, mistakes, and mishaps, which has led many to believe the film is cursed. From the get-go, things went wrong. A fire broke out on set after hours, delaying filming for 6 weeks. Cast and crew members got hurt left and right. Key props were lost at crucial moments. Eventually, director William Friedkin asked Father Thomas Birmingham, S.J., a Jesuit priest and an advisor on the film, to exorcise the set. Birmingham, who could not actually perform an exorcism, blessed the set. Nothing else happened on the set after the blessing. Birmingham said in the show American Hauntings, but around that time, there was a fire in the Jesuit residence set in Georgetown. For many on set, however, the blessing came a little too late. From electricians losing toes to bouts of sunstroke, the movie racked up a disturbing history. There was even an injury incurred on set that continues to affect Linda, the main character today. The injury occurred in a scene during which Regan is in the throes of her demonic possession. Blair thrashed around with the help of a rig that kept her tied to the moving bed. In one of the takes, the lacing came undone. I'm crying. I'm screaming. They think I'm acting up a storm. It fractured my lower spine. No, they didn't send me to the doctor. It is the footage that's in the movie, explained Blair in an episode of the documentary Cursed Films. Aside from injuries, there was also a fire that burned the majority of the set, but that mysteriously left Regan's bedroom untouched. There were also deaths among the cast and crew. Jack McElran, who played Chris' friend Burke Dennings, passed away a week after finishing his scenes, with the last one being Dennings' death, caused by the possessed Regan. Vasiliki Malioros, who played Father Karras' mother, also died before the movie was finished, with her character passing away at the beginning of the story. The main cast of The Exorcist also dealt with the deaths of people close to them, as well as life-threatening incidents happening to their loved ones. Linda Blair's grandfather died during the first week of production. Max von Sydow had to travel back to Sweden after his first day on set as his brother passed away, and Jason Miller's son, the Lost Boys' Jason Patrick, was struck by a motorcycle, leaving him in critical condition. In addition to that, the night watchman and the operator of the refrigeration system for Regan's room also died, as well as the assistant cameraman's newborn child. The Exorcist was released on Boxing Day in 1973, but it seemed claims of the curse weren't going to die down. During one screening in Rome, it was reported that a bolt of lightning struck a church opposite the cinema. In America, one woman passed out and broke her jaw, and later sued Warner Brother for an undisclosed sum. Meanwhile, in the UK, it was reported that St. John's ambulance staff attended screenings to help distressed cinemakers. The Omen. This horror classic tells the story of a couple who adopt a child that, as it turns out, might be the son of the devil. But while it is beloved by some would argue that making a film about such a story was tempting fate. And they might have the evidence to back this up. Production on The Omen was controversial from the get-go. Executive Bob Munger, who pitched the original story, warned the producer about the dangers of making a film like this. If the devil's greatest single weapon is to be invisible, and you're going to do something which is going to take away his invisibility to millions of people, he's not going to want that to happen, he said. The bad luck began a month before filming commenced when lead star Gregory Peck's son ended his own life. Later, when Peck was heading to London for the film, his plane was struck by lightning. Amazingly, the same thing happened to executive producer Mace Neufeld only a week later. And that wouldn't be the only aviation problem, as a plane that many of the crew were originally meant to board ended up crashing. Even more frightening, Neufeld and his wife were staying at the Hilton Hotel in London when the Irish Republican Army blew it up. Thankfully, they were not in the hotel at the time. Undeniably, the most eerie and distressing occurrence to plague the Omen was when special effects designer John Richardson was driving with his assistant Liz Moore in Holland while working on the film A Bridge Too Far when his car crashed. Liz Moore was disturbingly beheaded in a manner that was chillingly similar to the death scene Richardson helped create special effects for in The Omen. More sinisterly, the crash occurred on Friday the 13th, and after crawling from the wrecked car, Richardson reportedly saw a Dutch road sign near the accident that said, Omen, 66.6 kilometers. The eerie happenings had everyone so spooked that producer Harvey Bernhard carried a cross on set and said, the devil was at work, and he didn't want that film made. Poltergeist. When a family moves into a new home, they are soon tormented by evil spirits and strange happenings. As the ghosts take a special interest in 5-year-old daughter Carol Ann, Heather O'Rourke, the Freeling family is forced to consult with an eccentric medium as they band together to save her young soul. Dominique Dunne, who portrayed Dana Freeling, was the first to meet a tragic fate after her former partner murdered her on her driveway in 1982. Then, Julian Beck, who played the evil preacher Cain in the second movie, took his own life in 1983 after a long battle with stomach cancer. Next, Will Sampson, who played the Native American Shaman Taylor, passed away during surgery in '87. Finally, Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann, the focal point of the series Poltergeist, tragically passed away at the age of 12 from an intestinal abnormality. Aside from these heartbreaking deaths, the movie was plagued by weird incidents and revelations, such as the fact that real skeletons were used in a frightening water scene involving Jobeth Williams' character. Many superstitious fans of the film believe that is how the curse originated. In the first film, Oliver Robbins was nearly strangled by the animatronic clown that tormented his character Robbie. Steven Spielberg saw what was happening and managed to free Robbins just in time. Actor Richard Lawson survived a plane crash in 1992 that claimed the lives of 27 of its 51 passengers. He was gifted a first-class seat after giving his autograph, which ultimately saved his life, as the person in his original seat died. The production got so spooky that actor Will Sampson, a real-life shaman, performed an on-set exorcism to rid the place of spirits. Rosemary's baby. The first unlucky soul was Conda. Details of his death are still scarce, but Polanski told it this way. In autumn of 1968, then 37-year-old Comedo was roughhousing at a party when he fell off a rocky escarpment and into a 4-month coma, the very same affliction Levin's witches used to kill Rosemary's suspicious friend in the book. Comeda never regained consciousness and died in Poland the following year. In April 1969, producer William Castle, sick with worry from the hate mail he received constantly, was suddenly stricken with severe kidney stones. While delirious in the hospital, he hallucinated scenes from the film and was said to have yelled, "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the knife." Castle recovered, just barely, and never made a Hollywood hit again. Then there's Polanski's fate, told and retold into legend, even by him. Polanski had relocated to California alongside his new girlfriend, actress Sharon Tate, who was fresh off her first movie role as a witch in Eye of the Devil, just before filming began. She had gunned hard for the lead role in Rosemary's Baby, but Paramount cast Mia Farrow. Tate instead loitered around the set, appearing uncredited like a ghost in the background of Rosemary's young people-only party scene. And some say becoming increasingly obsessed with the occult. Many years later, a friend quoted her in print as having said, "The devil is beautiful. Most people think he's ugly, but he's not." Polanski last saw Tate, by then his wife and very pregnant, in July 1969, noting in his autobiography a grotesque thought he had at the time. "You will never see her again," he wrote. Tate was brutally murdered on August 8 by the Manson family, as was their unborn son, all while Rosemary's Baby still lingered in theaters. Unable to make sense of such a tragedy, and captivated by the stories of the Manson family, the public took to Satan and curses as the only explanation. Internet fanatics say, like Guy Woodhouse, Polanski made his young wife a blood sacrifice for his still untouchable status in Hollywood and beyond. Others maintain the Manson murders were a mere moment in a grand satanic conspiracy scored by the Beatles. The White Album was written largely at an Indian meditation, with Mia Farrow in attendance. The song title, Helter Skelter, albeit misspelled, was scrawled in blood at the crime scene. And a dozen years later, Lennon was assassinated across the street from the Dakota, the gabled landmark where Rosemary's Baby was filmed. While Levin never fell from a cliff to his dramatic demise, he suffered a more fitting kind of poetic justice. First, his marriage crumbled, with the divorce finalized in 1968. Notoriously private, Levin never gave details of the breakup, though The Stepford Wives, published 4 years later, maybe says it all. Catholics in particular bombarded him with ongoing criticism, as did the Catholic Church, which very publicly slapped a C rating, condemned, onto the film for its mockery of religious persons and practices. Levin didn't believe in witches or curses, he said over and again, yet fear grew in him just the same. On a 1980 episode of The Dick Cavett Show, appearing alongside Stephen King, Levin sits quiet, pensive, and insecure. "I don't recall being scared at all," he said of his childhood horror inspirations. "Now I'm terrified." The Crow. While it's not strictly a horror film, The Crow is a macabre, gothic superhero movie that's heavily influenced by horror classics. It also is one of the most tragic Hollywood productions to date. Directed by Alex Proyas and released in 1994, The Crow is a comic book adaptation starring Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, as Eric Draven, a man who is murdered alongside his fiancée by a group of gang members right before Halloween. Sometime later, a crow with mystical powers brings Eric back from the dead, setting the stage for his revenge against those who murdered him. The Crow had a slow and rocky production. According to Cursed Films, during pre-production, a mysterious voice called the offices and left a voicemail asking production to stop. This was followed by multiple tragedies. On February 1st, the very first day of filming, 27-year-old carpenter Jim Martitius suffered serious burns over much of his body when live power lines collided with the crane he was in. That same day, a publicist working on the film was in a car accident, and an equipment truck mysteriously caught on fire. One crew member fell through a roof and broke several ribs, while one drove a screwdriver through his hand. A truck drove through the set, with stories differing about what exactly occurred. Many claim that it was an accident, while some have suggested that the driver was a disgruntled employee gone temporarily berserk and immediately fired and banned from the set. As with so much of this story, it's impossible to say for sure what happened, but it's said to have ended in the man colliding with his steering wheel and suffering injuries. Finally, on March 13, a storm destroyed several sets, costing thousands of dollars in damages. Considered to be one of the most unlikely and unlucky accidents in Hollywood, Lee's death required weeks of investigation for police to even fully understand what exactly had taken place. For some time, all anyone knew was that Lee had been shot in the abdomen during a scene, and that he had spent hours on the operating table before passing away. The full story involves a complicated chain of events and many small mistakes across several days. The Crow was already over a week behind schedule. The person typically serving as the weapons master on the film had been told he was no longer needed, and therefore was not present on set to possibly have prevented the accident. Blanks were loaded by the prop master, but a slug had become lodged in the barrel when the gun had been dry-fired earlier, and shooting the blank propelled the slug. As a result, on the 50th day of filming, one of the actors, Michael Massey, apparently chosen at random on the night of, as the character who would deliver the killing shot, fired the untested gun at Lee. Massey, who played Funboy, was so traumatized by the events of Lee's death that he took a year off from acting. Although he went on to play several roles in many genre films and TV shows, he claimed to still be experiencing nightmares years later and was apparently never able to bring himself to watch the finished version of The Crow. Even more upsetting was the news that if the shot had been slightly less well aimed, Lee would likely still be with us today. Massey passed away in 2016 of stomach cancer. The scene being filmed that night was the one in which Eric returns home to find his fiancée being brutally attacked by the gang. And when he goes to defend her, he is killed immediately. In another unsettling parallel to the story right down to the specific scene, Lee had been set to marry his own real-life fiancée later that month. On the day of Lee's life-ending accident, Entertainment Weekly ran an article listing all of these upsetting accidents entitled Bird of Ill Omen, obviously having no clue what was going to occur that very day. In retrospect, some fellow cast members have mentioned that Lee would joke about his death, or that he was having premonitions about the end of his life. John Polito recalled that Lee had managed to cut himself up pretty badly on fake sugar glass during a scene in which Draven bursts through a window, and he warned the actor against putting his body on the line in that way. Not everyone believes in curses, and we're not saying you should, but if you're on the fence, the many terrible issues on the sets of these movies definitely make a case for it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying content. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.